What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, here to discuss a WWE topic. Now, I'm going to give you the 10 reasons why I believe the WWE is sitting with their worst Monday Night Raw and SmackDown ratings that they've ever had in their history. Now, there are a lot of reasons why. We review the shows weekly, so if you aren't already subscribed to our channel, make sure you subscribe to the Bottom Line View for weekly reviews on Raw and SmackDown. But I'm here, and I was thinking, I asked Dylan, I asked Kev, I asked Jake even, what are the issues with the WWE right now? And combined with my take, I have gathered the 10 biggest reasons, at least in my opinion, why Raw and SmackDown are doing such terrible ratings, why the show is so bad. And people can sit here and they can say this and that, and there are new wrestlers coming up and there's things that they like, but let's be honest, the WWE product right now is probably the worst it's ever been. And in my opinion, it's the worst it's ever been in my lifetime. I was born in 96, so I was never able to see the years of 93, 94, 95 live. You can go back, you can watch it on WWE Network, but it's not quite the same. Now, I've seen the years past that point, and I can say, honestly, that this product that we're seeing in the WWE right now on a weekly basis, on Raw, on SmackDown, this in 2017 is the worst product I've ever seen, and quite honestly, the ratings show you that. The ratings are a fact to show you how good a show is. Really, it's one of the biggest factors in determining how popular a show is and also how good a show is. If your show is getting good ratings, it's most likely a very good show. And we've seen with WWE that in the past, when it's been at its best, like in the Attitude Era, it's gained high ratings. And really since 2005, where they had 1 year of a spike in the ratings, they've gone down about 10% per year. But it just seems like in 2017, there's been a major shift. Ever since WrestleMania, WWE has been rapidly declining in viewership on a weekly basis. It almost seems like they're just driving fans away, or people are just finally fed up and they're leaving the product. They're no longer watching it on a weekly basis. I have no idea why, but I'm here to give you the 10 reasons, other than why it just sucks, that I think the WWE, why they're at the worst ratings ever. So let's start off with the first and one of the most important factors. And this was Kev's number one factor for his 10 reasons. No stars on the show. The shows have no stars. And we're not talking about Roman Reigns is not a star, okay? Finn Balor is not a star. Shinsuke Nakamura is not a star. Seth Rollins is not a star. Dean Ambrose is not a star. Who are the rest of their top guys? Kevin Owens is not a star. Randy Orton was a borderline star probably about 5 to 8 years ago. He's no longer in that star status. The only real star that WWE has, there's about 2 of them. They have John Cena and they have Brock Lesnar. Those are the 2 stars that can consistently come on their show and make waves and draw viewers and draw fans. Those are the only 2 stars that they can actually have. But if you've noticed, John Cena no longer comes on regularly. Brock Lesnar is never there despite being champion. So they really have no stars. They have no stars that have the look. Really, you know, Roman Reigns has the look, but he doesn't really have the other charisma factor to gain more fans. There's a number of reasons why Roman Reigns isn't over, really, with a large majority of fans. I personally believe that he should be a heel. I personally am a fan of Roman Reigns, but he's not a star in no means. You know, there's other guys out there in the company, like a Bray Wyatt, in my opinion, who has the charisma, can act his ass off, has the character. But for whatever reason, WWE seems to not be allowing him to become a star. They're putting a ceiling on him, when really he should be breaking through that glass ceiling and he should be becoming one of the stars of their company. They have no stars. They have no Hogans. They have no Rocks. They have no Austins. They have no even Goldberg level stars. They have no Undertakers. They have no Shawn Michaels. they don't even have a Triple H at this point in time. So for me, looking at the show, when there are no stars, when there are no big names, people aren't going to watch the product because they don't have that one wrestler that drives them toward the product. When Hulk Hogan was in the 80s, that is the name that primarily drove. There were also guys like Macho Man and Piper and those type of guys that were in the limelight, but Hogan was that number one guy that was driving the audience. In the early 90s, they sort of got away from that. Hogan wasn't as hot as he once was. That's kind of why their ratings went down. Hogan wasn't as hot. He was kind of getting a little bit stale, and they didn't really replace that number one guy. Warrior was, in there a little bit in the late 80s. They had Macho Man kind of in there in the late 80s. In the early 90s, they had to make a transition to guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and they just weren't the same as a Hulk Hogan until Stone Cold Steve Austin came in the fold around 1997, where they started to get a spark, and this created the Attitude Era, along with some writing differences, along with a new, edgier product. And then you throw The Rock in there, which absolutely, combined with Austin's star power, Rock took it to even the next level, and they just exploded, and the ratings went through the roof. And really, WWE was kind of surviving on guys like Brock Lesnar, guys like Triple H, the same crowd of wrestlers that were there in the Attitude Era that were kind of developing. Edges of the world, the Chris Jerichos, the Kurt Angles. They were kind of surviving until, around 06-ish. There was the Benoits, the Eddie Guerreros. Those guys were all in the limelight for a while there. Even Kane was still around. Even Taker was still around. There were still names there. And at WrestleManias, there was still Shawn Michaels to put on a show. There was still the Takers to put on the show. But now that we've gotten to this new era where even now Cena is gone, and Cena is gone, and Cena, the big reason why they don't have stars, one of the huge reasons is because they refused to push anybody but Cena for a large portion of time. They created one good star, one big star, not a star on the level of Austin, Rock, Hogan, or even Vince, or even Taker. Cena's kind of under that. He's not an Andre. He's kind of under that level. He's not a Flair. He's somewhere in the middle of, stars that have been created through wrestling. And he might even become a bigger star through TV and through movies. We'll see what happens in the future. But in terms of stars, during that period where Cena started to take over, Cena became the primary focus. Nobody became a focus except for Cena. Cena was the man. Cena was the man. Cena was the man. Nobody else had a chance to be the man. There was a reason why that dip happened with Hogan, because Hogan was the man. He was the man. He was the man. And as great as Hulk Hogan was, and as great as he would prove to be throughout the course of his career, once he goes to WCW, he gets reignited with the fans. He turns heel. He becomes even a bigger star, arguably, and then joins the NWO, and they have that huge spike in WCW. Hogan and Cena to a lesser degree, Hogan was a huge star. He was amongst the biggest in sports. He was up there with the Montanas and the Jordans, and he was up there in the top 5 stars in the entire sports landscape in the 80s. And then once we go to Cena in like 2006 area, he never made it to that level. And that really, really hurt them for a few years here. And now that he never made it to that level of a Hogan, they didn't have the ability, and they refused to put other people over into that spot. They refused to put CM Punk into Cena's spot. They refused to put Daniel Bryan into Cena's spot. They refused to put Edge into Cena's spot. They refused to put Kurt Angle into Cena's spot. They refused to put these people into that spot. Thus, in this new era, we have no stars. Everybody is gone. CM Punk quit. Daniel Bryan had to retire, which I'll get to a reason why in a little bit. All these people retired or left or are gone somehow, some way, and they just are left with nobody. They're trying to create Roman Reigns, and they're forcing him and forcing him and forcing him, and the fans they're just not digging it. They're just not going with it, and Roman Reigns would be better used in a different capacity. But then you also look at the wrestlers themselves. There isn't a wrestler that I can really say that he would be a massive star. I mean, the closest one I can really see is Bray Wyatt. I brought that up before. I'll bring it up again. I think he could be an Undertaker level star. Now, that's not a Rock star. That's not a Austin star. That's not a Hogan star, but that is something. You know, that is something. I don't think they have a wrestler on the roster today that you can truly say could carry a company by himself. You don't see an Austin just in the wings. You know, that is why they're force-feeding Reigns, because they don't see another guy that can really stand up and do something. I mean, there are a bunch of decent wrestlers, some decent talents, but there are no extraordinary wrestlers. There are no extraordinary actors. There are no extraordinary guys that have great charisma combined with an awesome look that everybody, you know, is like, ooh, wow, that guy looks like $1 million. That guy looks like he's the star of a television show. That guy looks like he can be the face of the franchise, other than really Roman Reigns. And that's why they keep force-feeding us with him. Again, there are not enough guys that are good actors. There are not enough guys with the charisma. And there are not enough guys with the look. Those are three big things that have been through the course of wrestling. This is a fact. You look at the biggest times in wrestling, and the look, the acting, and the charisma have been the three combination of why these wrestlers have been so good. Rock had the look, had the acting, had the charisma. Hogan had the look, had the acting, had the charisma. Even in the 80s, they had numerous wrestlers with this. The 80s, you know, the whole 80s thing, even the Attitude Era wrestlers, they all had this. Even in the mid-card, I mean, the roster was so stacked that they all looked like television stars. And nowadays, we have guys like Dean Ambrose. We have guys like Kevin Owens. We have guys like Sami Zayn. They simply don't look like stars. They simply don't look it. They don't look like they should be on your television show. They don't look like they would be on The Walking Dead. They don't look like they would be on these big shows, you know, in today's landscape, right? They don't look like they should be on a big-time television show. But they're in wrestling, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. They never used to be, but for some reason now they are. And I don't know where that lost. Is that Triple H's influence on Vince? Is that Vince losing his marbles? I don't quite understand that. Continuing on, they have no stars. Next, the way the show is formatted is for preschool kids. I mean, you watch the show and you watch any other TV show, it's formatted differently. It's formatted with simple television things. It's formatted with cliffhangers. It's formatted with foreshadowing. It's formatted with storylines and threads throughout an entire show. You see the main character at the beginning. You see the main character in almost every scene in the show. You see a main character. What they used to do, to relate this to wrestling terms, in the Attitude Era, when Russo and Ferraro were writing, they used to have Austin at the beginning, Austin in the middle, and Austin at the end. You watch SmackDown now, the WWE Champion Jinder Mahal has one 3-minute segment. How is that going to attract anybody to watch the product when you don't even care about your number one guy? The only person they do this with sometimes is Reigns. You'll see Reigns at the beginning, you'll see Reigns in the middle, and Reigns at the end. That's about it. And you don't see that often. You only see a wrestler once. How hard is it for a wrestler or an actor or anybody? It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's The Rock. It doesn't matter if it's Brad Pitt. It doesn't matter if it's whoever you want to throw in there, big movie star. If they're only in one scene in the entire show, in the entire movie, how hard is it to get over with an audience? Especially in this day and age where people have changed in terms of the amount of patience they have. The Rock, you would see The Rock at the beginning, you'd see The Rock in the middle, and The Rock at the end. Go watch an Attitude Era Raw from 98, an Attitude Era Raw from 1999. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see the threads throughout the show. And it's not just one thread. It's not just Austin McMahon, but you'll see a different thread. You'll see a Taker Kane thread. You'll see a Nation DX thread. You'll see a Sable thread. You'll see multiple threads throughout a show, the similar way that you'll see in a other show. Go to any good show on Netflix, and you'll find a thread for every main character in the show. You'll see one character is over here doing this, one character is over here doing that. You'll see these threads throughout the show. And today we don't see that. We just see matches, long matches, more matches, and matches, and the occasional interview, and the occasional backstage thing, the occasional fight backstage. I mean, we don't see anything fancy. We don't see anything that a regular TV show would do. And that's driving away an audience. You're only gaining the wrestling audience. You're only gaining the fans that will watch anything with the name wrestling in it when you're doing this type of show. The only reason I watch the show is to review it, to be quite honest with you guys. I don't enjoy the show anymore. It's getting really, really repetitive. It's terrible. I haven't liked it in a very long time, to be honest. There's an episode here and there where I'm like, yeah, that was good. Or a segment here and there where I'm like, yeah, that was entertaining. But a lot of times now I watch a show in an hour. I fast forward it, I watch the show in an hour, take my notes, and review it for you guys. You know, this isn't a show where I'm sitting here, and I also do Attitude Era reviews on the channel. And I'm sitting there, I can't fast forward anything. There's nothing to fast forward through. Everything is important. Everything has a story. Every character has something to do. You can't fast forward it. And that leads me into my next thing. So not only is the show formatted terribly, and if they just changed a few things and they added a few simple television elements like cliffhangers, like not going to commercial during a match, they would increase their audience. It's that simple. Then you go to the next thing, which is a lack of creativity, repetitiveness, and flexibility. Now, what do I mean by those three words? Creativity, repetitiveness, and flexibility. Well, they lack creativity. They do the same show every single week, and it just seems like they place them in different segments. They do the same show every week, they place it in different segments, and they don't get out of the box. It's wrestling in the ring, it's promo in the ring, it's interview backstage, it's 1976 wrestling. It's the same thing we've been seeing forever. You don't see the pre-shot out of arena segment anymore, really. We used to see that in the 80s. We used to see that at Saturday Night's Main Event. We used to see that at the Attitude Era. We used to see that even in the early 2000s. We don't see that anymore. We don't see the out of arena. And if it is, people crap on it for some reason. The wrestling fans that they are targeting, which want the 20-minute long matches, and they don't care about characters, all they want to see is the fake wrestling matches. They are driving the WWE away from doing that by protesting on Twitter that they hate this stuff. Like, this is a television show. It's not a real sporting event. They are trying to gain a television audience. At least that's what they should be doing. And television audiences like they want to know the character. They want to know the person behind the wrestler. They don't want to just watch the matches with no flavor. You know, it's like eating something with no flavor. It's like, I don't know. It's bad. But it's a lack of creativity. They do the same things over and over. They do the same interview over and over. They do the same in-ring promo. Even the way that they lack creativity in the way that they do their show. They have the segment at the beginning with the four wrestlers in the ring. They do a match immediately following that. Then they go to an interview or a backstage thing. Then they go to another match. Then you see Michael Cole. Then they go to something else. And it's blah, 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 blah. They start the show the same way every week. They end the show with a match every single week with maybe an attack at the end or a statement at the end. Nothing creative. No stakes, nothing. It's repetitive in that way, in that fashion. It's also repetitive that we see the same type of show multiple times a week. We see Raw, SmackDown, NXT. They're all the same type of show. They're all the same type of show. The brands are exactly the same. And this was Jake's big point. He said that Raw, SmackDown, and even NXT are the same show. Raw, same show, same set, same setup, same stage, same entrances, same ring. Everything is the same. Why don't we vary that? You know, why don't we have Raw be a totally different show from SmackDown? Even what they used to do in the Attitude Era is they used to separate the Raw. So they would have 1 hour would be like Raw, the War Zone, and 1 hour would be something else. So they would try and separate it. It would be the same setup for everything, but they would do this different sort of things. Like, why don't we try and do Raw as a totally different type of show? SmackDown is a totally different type of show. You still have wrestling involved in it, but it's a totally different show. Why don't you give more leeway in that? Why don't you give more creativity in that? You brought Shane McMahon back for a reason. He came back for a reason. Why is Shane McMahon sitting here and not really, it seems like he's not really doing anything, to be quite honest with you. And I feel like Shane McMahon is being misutilized in that fashion. And I desperately hope that it's Shane McMahon that's taking over the company and not Triple H. Because a Triple H only sees the show in a wrestler's point of view. While Shane McMahon sees it in a business point of view, he also sees it in a creative point of view. And for me, the wrestlers are too involved in the segments. The wrestlers are too involved in the writing. Like, why are creative people not writing the show? Why are wrestlers involved in the creative? That's not their job. Their job is to wrestle. Their job is to perform. Their job is not to be the creative. And we've seen multiple times in wrestling history where wrestling ratings have gone way down because wrestlers have taken charge in creative. And it seems like that has also happened in WWE a little bit. There's still Vince McMahon there, who leads me to another point. He's out of touch. The show is out of, it's not with the times. It's not with the times. He's out of touch. You can see segments where Vince McMahon repeats multiple segments. We saw last Raw where WWE desperately tried to repeat the Attitude Era. They desperately tried to repeat Vince Russo's writing. They desperately tried to repeat This Is My Life. They desperately tried to repeat the pole match. They desperately tried to repeat the Gold Dust vignette. Like, are you going to be more creative? Are you going to do something different? Vince has run out of ideas. Vince needs to step down. As much as I love the guy, he needs to step down. They need to move on. And it shouldn't be Triple H who takes it over, because he only sees it in a wrestler's view. He doesn't know what draws a television audience. He didn't go to school for it. He hasn't wrote television shows before. He shouldn't be responsible for it, to be quite honest with you. He can do something else. He can be an agent. He could be responsible for the wrestlers. He could be in development for characters. But the writers need to write the show. The writers need to be responsible for, this is going to happen in the beginning, this is going to happen in the middle, and this is going to happen at the end. Because these people don't know what they're doing. And, you know, at least in my opinion, I don't know, I wouldn't really know what to do, to be quite honest with you, but I would be better than what they have right now. It's easy to say. It's easy to say, but it's hard to be worse. And I know that I'm creative enough to do that. I know I'm creative enough to do that. Okay, so we went over lack of creativity, repetitiveness, flexibility. Flexibility, I didn't say. Flexibility should be the ability to adapt to, this also goes to the out of touch, the flexibility to adapt to the times, adapt to the week, adapt to the year, adapt to the month, adapt to what's cool on television. Be more aware of your surroundings. What's happening in sports? What's happening on television? What's happening online? What's happening on social media? Be more adaptive and adapt the characters to that, adapt the show to that, adapt what the storylines are to that. What is popular in culture right now? What is a big thing that people are all over on the news? You know, what are key issues in society? And how can we reflect that on our television show? And that will draw people, because people are interested in the now. So what that is happening right now can we put on our show? Flexibility also is with the talent. How can we allow the talent to get the best out of themselves? Something I loved about the older product is that they had a ton more flexibility to be themselves. They had a ton more ability to talk to the writers and to understand how to get their character over. They could do their own promos without it being written for them. They could freelance. They could act themselves. They didn't have to stay in a square box. They didn't have their creative shut down. They were able to burst out and make a name for themselves. They weren't stuck in this square box. Then next is no characters, and that goes on to it. We have no characters in this current wrestling format, in this current day and age. There are no characters in the WWE. I mean, there's Bray Wyatt. There's the Fashion Police. There is Jinder Mahal, maybe. I think that's it. You really think about it. Who's a character on the show? Like, Dean Ambrose is the lunatic. That's a nickname. It's not a character. Sasha Banks is the boss. That's a nickname. That's not a character. Charlotte is the queen. That's a nickname, not a character. They do these nickname things and try and convince us that they're characters, but they're not characters. They're just nicknames. There are not enough characters on the show. Go back to the Attitude Era where characters were supreme, where they were the biggest thing. You look at every single wrestler on the entire show, they had a character. And you knew what they were thinking. You knew how they would act in a certain situation. Now we don't know. It's just heels, faces, wrestler 1, wrestler 2, wrestler A, wrestler B, wrestler C versus D. We don't see character versus character. We see wrestler versus wrestler. And that is a huge issue. That doesn't draw on TV. That might draw house shows, but it doesn't draw TV because we need to see characters. There's no character development. There's no character development. There's no vignettes anymore. There's no actual attempt or effort to put forth a good character for any wrestler on the show. The next thing is leading into characters also is storylines. We have no actual storylines. There's wrestler 1 versus wrestler 2. It's always, I'm a wrestler, you're a wrestler. I'm a good wrestler, you're a bad wrestler in terms of I'm a face, you're a heel. I'm going to wrestle you. It's not a story. There's no story why this person is wrestling this person. There's no story, on why this character is wrestling this character. And if you have a character, it really helps on developing the storylines because if you have the character, you start with the character, then you build the storylines. But without the characters, you can't build the storylines. All it ends up becoming is wrestler 1 versus wrestler 2. Name one storyline right now. There are none. The only storylines there are I'm a wrestler, you're a wrestler, I'm going to prove that I'm the better wrestler. And who wants to see that when we can just go watch UFC and it's actually real and we can actually see a real fight and see who actually is the real fighter? In wrestling, it's fake wrestling. We're supposed to be suspending disbelief. So why should we want to watch this person fight this person? The only instance where that actually worked was Rock and Austin because to that point, they were the best wrestler versus the best wrestler. So it was easy. But even the first time they wrestled, there was a story there because The Rock was a part of the corporation. There are no instances in the past when wrestling was popular where this wrestler wrestled this wrestler just because. There was a story there. You know what I mean? You need something. His wife is cheating on him for this guy. That's why they should be wrestling each other. You need to give a reason. Otherwise, people don't care. Otherwise, there's meaningless matches, Raw after Raw after Raw, match after match after match. And that leads me into the type of wrestling that happens nowadays. There's too much focus on the wrestling. There is not enough focus on the storylines. There's not enough focus on the characters. There's too much wrestling on the shows. Way too much. And when it becomes Raw, SmackDown, NXT, way too much wrestling. And then you get to the point where the style of wrestling is so bad. Today's wrestling, in my opinion, is so bad. They don't tell a story. There is no sense of actually, telling a story in your match. Actually having some sort of charisma within your matches. There's no pace to the match. It's just a bunch of spots. It's spot after spot after spot. There's no psychology involved. There's no getting that story over. There's no, it's all the moves are fake. The moves are way over the top and ridiculous. There's ridiculous flips, runs through the second rope. it's a terrible style of wrestling, and it's really caused to be repetitive. It's nice to see every once in a while, but match after match after match with wrestler after wrestler that are the same style of wrestler and do the same moves. There are no wrestlers that are different. There are no wrestlers that are different. It used to be cool to watch Rey Mysterio because he was so different from everybody else. It was cool to see an Austin because he was different from a Taker. It was cool to see Mankind because he was different from The Rock. It was cool to see Triple H because he wrestled a different style from, I don't know, Road Dogg. You know, it's the wrestlers are the same. They wrestle the same style, and the style they wrestle is fake. There is no sense of believability in the way they wrestle. It's ridiculous head kicks. It's ridiculous knees to the head where you should be knocked out. It's ridiculous flips off the top rope. It's ridiculous run through the second rope. It's terrible type of wrestling, and I don't enjoy it. You can, sure, fine. But it doesn't make for a good story. It doesn't make for psychology, and I'm just basing it off facts. When wrestling was good, this is the way it was. That's what I'm talking about, simply. Not just my opinion, but when wrestling was good, you can look it up. That is the way that wrestling was performed. Simple. The next thing is there are no headlines, no buzz. This is the age of social media. This is the age of social media. Social media is booming. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Snapchat, we have YouTube. We have blah, 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 blah. Cell phones, everybody, cell phone, texting, on their phone. They're on apps all the time. I'm always on apps. There is no buzz. You never hear about WWE anymore. There's nothing to create buzz in the WWE. The last thing that created buzz was, I think, Undertaker's last match. To a lesser degree, Jinder Mahal winning the championship, but that was like global buzz. That was like in India. That wasn't in North America. There is no buzz. You don't see WWE, unless you're following them, you don't just see out of the blue a WWE tweet. Maybe it's like an old promo from The Rock or an old promo from Austin. But you don't see like, this is what happened on Raw this week. Oh my God. You know, something crazy happened. Roman Reigns ran over Seth Rollins. You don't see buzz created. And when it's the age of social media, when you could be taking advantage of it and hot-shotting your shows so that you create buzz for people to tune in, you're not doing that. And you're not taking advantage of what you could have in terms of an audience. Because it is a live show. Because it is a show that's every week, from every single week of the year. You could actually be utilizing this to your advantage. And the last thing is that there's no competition. And I wanted to throw this in with the shows are the same. We talked about SmackDown and Raw being the same. Why don't we legitimately try and make them their competition? Why don't we legitimately make it so that Raw and SmackDown are the competition for each other? Or just get rid of the brand split altogether? Because if we're not going to make it legit and make this writing team versus this writing team, this rating versus this rating, these wrestlers versus these wrestlers, then what's the point of having two shows? Let one person, whether it's Shane on SmackDown, have his ability to change the show, change the stage, change the way that the show is made on SmackDown, and have Stephanie and Triple H change the way Raw is, change the way it looks, you know, everything. Make it totally different. Make it competition A versus competition B. Otherwise, we're not going to be relying on TNA, which has a terrible audience right now. We're not going to be relying on ROH. We're not going to be relying on New Japan. These aren't competitions for WWE. WWE doesn't have a competition. And that sucks. But all of these other reasons are bigger reasons why. I hear the competition thing, and I get it. But WWE could create its own competition if they really so please. They're not becoming edgy anytime soon. They're not pushing the envelope anytime soon, and it's sad to see. And the number one thing I think that I didn't throw on here is they don't show enough effort. I don't see the same love. I don't see the same pride in every show that I used to see. I don't see the same effort. I don't see the same comedy. I don't see the same drama. I don't see the same acting. I don't see the same charisma. I don't see the same wrestlers. I don't see the same effort from these shows. And that is the 10 reasons and more why WWE's ratings are at an all-time low. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a long one, but I really needed to get it off my chest. Thanks, guys, for joining me. It's Mitch of TheBottomLineView. Any other topics or discussions I should discuss regarding the WWE or any other sport, let me know in the comment section below, and let me know how you feel. What's the biggest reason why WWE is at its current state, drawing terrible numbers? Peace out.